Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we'll be comparing and contrasting dairy farming in two very different parts of the world, Switzerland and Kenya.
Very different indeed.
We'll be looking at Bernard and Jothi's experiences in Switzerland and what he learned from their dairy industry.
His Medium article provided some really insightful observations.
So just to set the stage for everyone, we'll be looking at a couple of key things today.
Okay, sounds good.
So first, the differences and similarities in their dairy industries, the role of things like technology and support systems, and then
The potential of goat milk production?
you got it. Now,
Yes.
you might be surprised to hear this, but
What was that?
even though these countries are worlds apart when it comes to resources and development, dairy farmers in both places face some similar challenges.
It's true. Despite those differences, farmers in both countries are ultimately trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Increase milk production and make a good living.
It really is like a tale of two dairy worlds, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have Switzerland known for its efficiency and picture-perfect cows.
And the chocolate.
Right. And Anjathi found that the average Swiss dairy cow produces something like 7,600 kilograms of milk every year.
Wow, that's a lot of milk.
And on top of that, the average herd size is 30 cows.
So these aren't small family farms we're talking about.
Not at all.
The Swiss dairy industry is like a well-oiled machine, super efficient.
And they've really embraced technology and data to optimize their operations.
They really have.
Now let's switch gears and head over to Kenya.
Okay.
The dairy industry there is still up and coming, but it has a lot of potential.
It really does.
But Kenyan farmers face a different set of challenges, especially when it comes to infrastructure and access to technology.
Right.
Their average milk yield per cow is lower, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 kilograms a year.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
It is, but what's really striking is how resilient and determined Kenyan dairy farmers are. They're coming up with creative ways to overcome those challenges and are starting to use mobile technology more and more to improve their operations.
Exactly. And that brings us to the heart of what makes this comparison so interesting.
What do you mean?
Well, could we take what we've learned from Switzerland and combine that with the innovation we're seeing in Kenya?
And use that to build a thriving African dairy industry.
You got it. Can African dairy farming reach a level of efficiency that rivals the Swiss? That's what we're trying to figure out today.
To give us an idea of what that might look like, Nijathi introduces us to Catherine, a Swiss dairy farmer who manages a herd of 50 cows.
Oh, wow.
She produces about 300 liters of milk daily, which is pretty impressive.
That is.
Her farm is a great example of how Swiss efficiency works in the real world.
How so?
Well, all of her cows are insured and ear-tagged, for one thing.
Makes sense.
They live in these large, well-ventilated barns.
Nice. So they're comfortable.
And she uses digital record-keeping to keep track of their health and milk production.
Very organized.
But here's the interesting part. Catherine isn't satisfied with just maintaining things the way they are.
I see.
She always wants to improve, and she's actually set a goal to increase her milk yields by 5 liters per cow every month.
Wow, she's really ambitious.
She is. Catherine's story shows us the power of technology, but it also makes us wonder, how can we bridge the gap in technology that exists between Swiss and African farms?
Well, Swiss farms rely heavily on automation,
Right.
whereas African farms are just starting to adopt those mobile-based solutions.
So you're saying that this gap could actually be an opportunity.
I am. It's what we call leapfrogging.
Leapfrogging, what's that?
It's the idea that developing countries don't need to follow the same steps as developed ones.
They can use new technologies to skip ahead.
Exactly. Instead of investing in tons of infrastructure,
Yeah.
African farmers can use things like mobile phones to get information, connect with markets, and manage their finances.
It's pretty amazing. It sounds like African dairy farmers have a real chance to create their own path to success.
They do. And that's where Nijathi's company comes in Fuyo.
In Fuyo.
They don't see this technology gap as a problem, but as a chance to create affordable and accessible solutions specifically for African farmers.
I like that a lot.
Me too.
Okay, so technology is a big part of this.
It is.
But what about the support that farmers need? How do Switzerland and Kenya compare there?
That's a great question.
What do you mean?
In Switzerland, the support system for dairy farmers is very strong. You got a lot of government subsidies, and there's a lot of private sector involvement too.
Okay, so they have a good safety net.
They do. What about Kenya?
Well, in Kenya, we see that the government is providing more and more support, and the private sector is getting more involved as well.
That's good to hear.
It is, but there's still limited access to things like loans and insurance, especially for small farms.
So there's still room for improvement.
Definitely.
It seems like even though farmers in both countries face similar challenges, the support they get is quite different.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something important to remember as we continue talking about the potential of African dairy farming.
Agreed. Before we move on, I'd like to mention something else interesting that Njati noticed.
What's that?
He saw that both in Switzerland and Kenya, people are getting more and more interested in goat milk.
That's right. Even though cow's milk is still the main product, goat milk is becoming a more popular option.
It seems like goat milk is particularly well suited to Africa.
Why do you say that?
I've heard it's easier to digest than cow's milk.
It is. And goats are much tougher than cows, so they can handle all sorts of climates and conditions.
It sounds like exploring goat milk could be a really important part of developing a successful African dairy industry.
Absolutely. And to give you an idea, Kenya produced a lot of goat milk in 2023, about 84,000 tons.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, and that's a lot more than Switzerland, which produced around 22,000 tons.
So there's definitely potential there.
There is. What's really exciting is that Imfuyo has already started a pilot program in Kenya focused on goat milk production.
Oh, wow, that's great.
They're providing farmers with financial help, technological support, and access to markets, and they're seeing some really positive results.
That's fantastic. It sounds like they're really committed to this.
They are. Their goal is to work with over 1 million livestock farmers across Africa over the next 10 years.
That's a huge goal. How do they plan on doing that?
Their approach involves a mix of different things: technology, financial products, knowledge transfer, value chain optimization, and sustainable practices.
So they're looking at the entire dairy industry from start to finish.
Exactly.
That's a perfect transition to our next topic, sustainability. We've talked about technology support systems and goat milk, but what about the environmental and social impact of all of this?
That's a super important question, and one we'll be exploring in our next segment. We'll be looking at how Swiss dairy farming has incorporated sustainability and what lessons African dairy farmers can learn from them. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive. You know, it's incredible how the Swiss dairy industry has managed to become so efficient.
Right. It's like they've got everything figured out.
Well, I guess that's why Switzerland is so famous for its cheese and chocolate, right?
Exactly. Those perfectly happy cows grazing on those lush green hillsides. It's almost like something out of a storybook.
It really is. But you know what's even more impressive is that they're not just resting on their laurels.
What do you mean?
I mean, they're constantly pushing the boundaries,
Yeah.
trying to find even better ways to do things.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They're not just satisfied with being good, they want to be the best.
Exactly. And that's where Njathi's idea of leapfrogging comes in.
Right. It's like skipping a few steps ahead.
Exactly. African farmers don't necessarily need to follow the same path that Switzerland took.
It's about finding those shortcuts, those innovative solutions that can help them catch up more quickly.
And technology plays a huge role in that, right?
Absolutely. Think about it. Instead of spending years building expensive infrastructure,
Yeah.
they can use things like mobile phones and apps to connect with markets, get access to financial services, even get veterinary advice.
It's like putting all that knowledge and expertise right in their pockets.
Exactly. And that's what Imfuyo is all about, giving farmers the tools they need to succeed.
I love that. Okay, so we've got technology, but what about the human element?
What do you mean?
I'm talking about knowledge, sharing the exchange of ideas and best practices.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial. Njathi's trip to Switzerland wasn't just about seeing the technology. It was about making connections and learning from the people who are using it every day.
So it's not just about the what, but also the how, right?
Exactly. Swiss farmers have a ton of experience that they can share with African farmers.
And vice versa.
Right. It's a two-way street.
It's about recognizing that we can all learn from each other no matter where we are in the world.
And that's a beautiful thing, don't you think?
I do. But, knowledge and technology are great.
Yeah.
But farmers also need support, the kind of support that helps them take risks and invest in their future.
You're talking about things like government subsidies, access to credit and insurance.
Exactly. In Switzerland, there's a whole system in place to help farmers manage those risks.
It gives them the security to try new things, to invest in their farms, and to plan for the long term.
And while things are improving in Africa, there's still a lot of work to be done in that area.
Especially for those smaller farms.
Right. They need access to those financial tools to help them grow and thrive.
It's about creating a safety net so that farmers can focus on what they do best, producing food.
Exactly. And it's not just about money. It's about having access to information and training.
Right. Farmers need the knowledge and skills to make the most of these new technologies and practices.
It's about empowering them to be successful.
And that's where mobile technology comes in again. It can be used to deliver training programs, connect farmers with experts, and build online communities where they can share information and support each other.
It's like building a whole ecosystem of support around these farmers.
Exactly. Imagine a future where African dairy farmers have the same level of access to information and support as their Swiss counterparts.
It's a future where they can use technology to overcome challenges, increase their production, and build better lives for themselves and their families.
It's a future worth striving for.
Absolutely. And, we can't forget about the potential of goat milk production that we talked about earlier.
Right. It's interesting how perceptions can be so different.
What do you mean?
Well, in some parts of the world, goat milk is seen as a bit of a niche product.
Like in Switzerland?
Exactly. But in Africa, it has the potential to become a major source of nutrition and income.
It's a great source of protein and other essential nutrients.
And goats are so much more adaptable to different environments than cows.
They can thrive in places where cows might struggle.
And as we saw earlier, Kenya is already producing more goat milk than Switzerland.
Which just goes to show how viable this sector is.
And let's not forget about Mfuyu's pilot program in Kenya. They've shown that with the right support, goat milk production can be a real game changer for small-scale farmers.
It's about finding those opportunities that are often overlooked.
And it's about being willing to experiment and try new things.
So we've talked about technology, knowledge transfer support systems, and the potential of goat milk.
We have.
But there's one more big piece of the puzzle that we need to talk about.
Sustainability. It's a crucial aspect of any conversation about the future of agriculture.
Absolutely. And it's something that Njati highlights in his article. Swiss dairy farmers are really leading the way when it comes to environmental sustainability.
They are.
They've adopted a whole range of practices to reduce their impact on the environment, protect natural resources, and ensure the well-being of their animals.
It's inspiring to see how seriously they take their responsibility to the planet.
And it's something that African dairy farmers can learn from as they grow their own industry.
It's about finding that balance between productivity and sustainability.
And realizing that you can actually have both.
Exactly.
It's really amazing to see how Swiss dairy farmers have actually managed to build sustainability into their industry.
Yeah, they're not just talking the talk, they're actually doing it.
They really are. And they're doing a lot, from reducing their carbon footprint to making sure their animals are well cared for.
And what's even better is that they've found ways to make these sustainable practices good for their business, too.
Exactly. Njati's article talked about how many Swiss farms are already using renewable energy like solar and wind power.
Oh, wow. So they're not relying on fossil fuels as much?
Nope. And they're using some really cool techniques to deal with manure and reduce methane emissions.
Interesting. It's like they've thought of everything.
They really have. They understand that protecting the environment around their farm is just as important as what happens on the farm itself.
It's all connected, right?
It is. And that's why they're doing things like planting trees, restoring wetlands, and encouraging biodiversity.
That's so cool. It shows that you don't have to choose between success and being environmentally responsible.
You really don't.
Yeah.
And this is where I see a huge opportunity for African dairy farmers.
How so?
As they build and grow their industry, they can incorporate these sustainable practices right from the start.
So they can learn from what the Swiss are doing.
Exactly. And they can adopt approaches that are good for the planet and good for their business.
Now that's a win-win.
It really is.
Yeah.
Think about it. If they use energy-efficient technology, they can lower their costs.
Makes sense.
And if they take good care of their animals, they can actually produce more milk and better quality milk.
So it's good for the cows and good for the farmers.
Exactly. And technology can play a big role here too.
How so?
Well, things like precision farming can help farmers use resources more efficiently.
Right.
They can reduce waste and minimize their impact on the environment.
It's all about being smarter and more sustainable.
It is. But it's not just about what happens on the farm.
What else is there?
We as consumers, we have a responsibility too.
What do you mean?
We need to support farmers who are committed to sustainability.
By choosing to buy products from them.
Exactly. When we make those choices, it sends a message to the whole industry.
It tells them that we care about where our food comes from.
And how it's produced.
Yeah. Right. It's about creating a cycle where sustainability leads to more profits, which then leads to more investment in sustainability.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. Now imagine if we could create a global network of dairy farmers who are all sharing their knowledge about sustainability.
That would be amazing.
Swiss farmers have so much experience to share, and African farmers are eager to learn and adapt those practices.
It's all about working together.
Right. We can make things happen much faster if we collaborate and share what we know.
So what does all of this mean for the future of dairy farming?
Well, I think it paints a pretty optimistic picture. We're seeing so much innovation and a real commitment to sustainability in both Switzerland and Kenya.
And around the world.
Exactly. But it's a future that requires all of us to be thoughtful, innovative, and collaborative.
We need to embrace technology, prioritize sustainability, and never forget about our responsibility to society.
Well said.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with a thought. Next time you're at the grocery store, think about the choices you're making. Support those farmers who are doing things the right way.
And learn more about where your food comes from.
If you're part of the dairy industry, think about how you can make your own operation more sustainable.
Look for ways to collaborate, try new things, and share your knowledge with others.
The future of dairy farming really is in our hands. Let's work together to create a system that's good for the planet, good for the animals, and good for all of us.
It's been great talking with you today.
Likewise. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.